What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over everything you need to know about Fortnite's new Star Wars Galactic battle season. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and comment down below what you think of the new Star Wars season. So, with this season, we got an entire Star Wars themed loot pool as far as weapons go, and they're all blaster style weapons. With these blaster weapons, you don't have to worry about ammo, and you don't have to worry about reloading them. But there is a charge mechanic where if you fire too much, the weapon will overheat. And then you need to wait for it to cool down, and there's like a bit of an animation. So instead of worrying about ammo, you need to worry about not making your weapon overheat, basically. But as I said, we got an entire loot pool full of new weapons. There is a new pistol, a new SMG called the CR2, which shoots very fast. There's two new shotguns. One is a pump style shotgun, which is going to be the ACP scatter blaster. The scatter blaster are the shotguns. And then the BARM ST12 scatter blaster is the more like spammy one. But I'm going to think about these weapons as the pump and then the spammier shotgun for all of this season. There's a close to medium range DLT-19 blaster rifle, which is a long, big gun. Has a pretty solid fire rate. There's a long range DMR called the IQ-A11. And then there is a, more general all-purpose AR called the A280. This one does have a sight when you aim down sights with it, so they're not all third-person bloom weapons. And then returning from past Star Wars updates, we have the DC-15, which is a third-person weapon that has a very minimal bloom, but it has a very slow fire rate. The E11 is just a very mid weapon, and then the F11 blaster is a better E11 in my opinion. It's more accurate and has a faster fire rate, and this was personally my favorite of the blasters. As I said, though, they're all charge style weapons, so you need to worry about like overheating the weapon. I think a lot of people are not going to like these weapons, but I think a few of them are solid. My personal favorites were the F11, as I said. The IQ-A11 DMR I thought was incredibly good. The headshot damage on this, I believe, was like 120-ish or more. And it dished out damage at long range. And then the pump shotgun, the ACP, was my favorite of the two scatter blasters. But the season is still very new, so, it takes time to learn them and really make a solid opinion. That's kind of how I feel about this entire loot pool being new. When it comes to a new season, sometimes we have like, some returning weapons and then like a few new ones. When we get an entire loot pool change like this, I think it definitely takes a few days to really figure out which the best weapons are. But as I said, my favorites currently are the F11, the IQ-A11, and then the pump style shotgun. A lot of people are wondering if these weapons are hit scan or projectile, because you can kind of see the blasters traveling, but they are all hit scan aside from two. The IQ-A11, which is the DMR, is projectile, and then the DC-15 is also projectile, meaning those weapons have bullet drop and bullet travel time, but the other ones do not. So most of the weapons for this season are going to be hit scan, and there is several mythic versions of these weapons as well. You get the mythic F11 from Captain Phasma, who is at the First Order base POI. They also drop a medallion, which we'll get to later. The mythic A280, which is like the red dot AR, you get from capturing the train. The train is kind of back to how it was in Season 1, where you just, hold the button and then it captures over time once you start that process. There is a mythic IQ-A11 DMR from General Grievous. If your community standing is high enough, you're able to trade a lightsaber to him to get this. In the community standing, you basically just have to do challenges to level up. And then the mythic DL1144 pistol, which is the new pistol for this season, you get from defeating Shogun X on the island. And you heard that correctly. The island that spawns at 4th Zone is still Shogun X for some reason. With this season being Star Wars, there's also several lightsabers in the loot pool. And the way you get these is similar to Chapter 4 Season 2, where there will be several Jedi training locations that pop up around the map. You'll see a little indicator on the map, and then you have to go and talk to the NPC, and you will be given a lightsaber along with Jedi training. The Jedi training allows you to have the improved sprint and double jump when you have the lightsaber equipped, as well as a force ability. If you get your lightsaber from Rey, her force ability is force push, so you can push things away from you. If you get your lightsaber from Jar Jar, his force ability is lightning, and so you're able to activate the lightning. You can actually use this to disable cars, and then it also just will damage players as you would expect lightning to do. And then Darth Vader is at the Shogun Solitude POI or whatever replaced Shogun Solitude. And if you defeat him, you're able to get training from him. And then this gives you the force ability to throw the lightsaber. And then you also do get the improved sprint and the improved jump. The lightsabers are interesting though, because as I said, you get the lightsaber and Jedi training from talking to the NPC. If you eliminate somebody, you can get their lightsaber, which will function as a melee weapon, but you will not get the Jedi training, meaning you do not have the sprint, you don't have the better jump, and you also don't have the force ability. So the lightsaber is significantly better if you get it from talking to the NPC rather than just off an enemy that you eliminated. And as I already said, there's several kind of Star Wars NPCs that spawn around the map game to game. It's just like random where they spawn and stuff, but they are marked on the map. So if it is, you know, a goal of yours or it's important to you to get these lightsaber, they are marked on the map. And so you should be able to find it that way. That kind of, you know, runs the risk of other players going for it as well, obviously. And then also in this update, as far as heals go, we have the mini shields, big shields, bandages, med kits. Slap juice and slap splashes are back in the loot pool. This is a healing item that gives you unlimited sprint for a period of time after using it as well. I believe the splash, I believe they both heal 15. Chug jugs are still in the loot pool along with fish as well. So the main change as far as healing goes was slap juice and splashes being added back. For mobility, there is lightsabers if you have the training. As I said before, if you get the training, you get better sprint and you get a double jump. That double jump does negate fall damage, which is pretty good. And then there's also shockwaves. If you guys were playing very early after the update dropped this morning, or you saw people talking about it and then they said there was no mobility, that's because shockwaves were vaulted, but they were brought back already by Fortnite. So for whatever reason this morning, shockwaves weren't in the loot pool. I assume that was intentional and then they changed their mind. But either way, as of the time I record this, shockwaves are in the loot pool. And then there is also cars as well, as we've come to like know and expect. For thrown items, there is the EMP grenade and the thermal detonator item, which they added as well, or the thermal imploder, sorry, which kind of works similar to thermite. And then for cover items, there's shield bubble juniors and porta bunkers. We have 2 medallions for this season. The Captain Phasma, who is at the First Order base. If you defeat her, she will drop the Mythic F11, and then she'll also drop her medallion, which makes it to where your weapons take a little bit longer to overheat and then cool down faster. So it's like a pseudo extended mag for these charged weapons. You'll be able to shoot it longer without it overheating. And then when you do stop shooting, the cooldown will happen a little bit faster. I'm not too certain whether or not this medallion is a really big deal as of now. Again, it's something that takes a little bit of time to playing with to figure out. But as I said, I was kind of just thinking of it like extended mags. I'll take it. If you don't really want to put yourself on the map, it's not like this medallion is essential, but it was nice to have in my opinion. And then the other medallion is going to be the Super Shield medallion that you will get from defeating Shogun X on Island. This is the same medallion we had from him last season where you get a Shield Bubble Junior when you heal. I'm not sure why they chose to keep Island the same and have the same medallion, but that is what they chose to do for this season. So I think it's going to be pretty disappointing to a lot of players because the Shogun X medallion wasn't really that sought after last season. We also have TIE fighters and X-Wings that are in the loot pool that are drivable. These will spawn at certain locations around the map, mainly at the new Star Wars POIs. And these are flying vehicles that also have weapons on them. The weapons will deal about 25 damage per shot, which doesn't sound like a lot, but you will get melted rather quickly by these. And then they also have about 1,000 health, so they are somewhat fragile. They're not as like unbeatable feeling as like the cars felt at the start of Wrecked, where they had like a lot of HP and regen HP over time. They also can only shoot what they're facing. So if you're behind the TIE Fighter or X-Wing, it can't actually shoot you. It needs to like loop back around. The turret gun on it or whatever doesn't like turn 360 degrees. And it is the driver of the vehicle that has access to the guns on it, not any sort of like passengers. They just have their regular weapons. For some reason, the movement was updated today, and there is now no longer rolling or wall kicking, but wall running is still in. I don't know if this was intentional or an accidental update. As always with Fortnite, it's hard to know sometimes, so if in a few days they fix this, maybe running and wall kicking will be back. But for now, there's only wall running, and the other versions of the mobility were disabled. And then the banks from last season and the black markets were also removed. So you can't go there anymore. The banks were completely destroyed. And then the black markets are kind of covered up or filled in. you can't go in there and buy weapons anymore. And I've had people ask, like, what's the point of gold then? You can still buy things from vending machines, and you can still buy things from NPCs around the map, as well as the rebooting from gold mechanic that they added last season. I believe that is still in. I didn't play duos or squads today, but the reboot vans still have that indicator on them saying that you can buy reboot cards there. So I assume you're still able to buy reboot cards and buy that upgraded reboot. And then, like I said, there's vending machines and there's NPCs that you can purchase things from as well, as per normal in Fortnite. But that is going to be it for this video and this update. As fast of an overview for this season as I could. The loot pool, there's a lot of new items, and it's a bit overwhelming because the names are all kind of like ugly. They have a bunch of letters and numbers. It's not just like a word, you know? And then a lot of these weapons look the same. So it definitely takes some getting used to. Also, as far as map changes go, I almost forgot to talk about that because we've seen it so much already. But Whiffy Wharf was replaced by the Resistance base. The First Order base replaces Demon's Dojo. Vader Samurai Solitude replaces Shogun Solitude, but this POI looks very similar to how it was previously. And then the Outpost Enclave replaces Hopeful Heights. And then there's also several like Stormtrooper outposts around the map that are just like on the road and stuff where you can go and loot and eliminate these Stormtroopers to get weapons as well. But now that is going to be it for this video. As always, if you guys did find this to be helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.